It looks like we are live now. Let's give 2 minutes before all the platforms start syncing up. As usual, what we do is, and if anyone is following us on, I think we also go on our Instagram. So we are also live on Instagram. The Instagram is the one which I track mostly because if it is live there, then it is live everywhere. All right, so we are live now. Um, to kind of kickstart, like Ajit, I'll hand over the mic to you,
Yeah,
and you can take it forward. Now, stage is all yours.
yeah. I
My
think I'm
job is
quickly
done.
becoming. Uh, so thank you. I'm becoming like this the default AI crypto moderator of some sort. I think, which makes me kind of like AGI. I've been told I speak too fast, so I'm gonna try to slow down. More so that I don't sound like a bot. But I'm delighted to welcome two of the most product to first founders in this AI crypto space. AI crypto gets a lot of shit for being very mimetic and like hype oriented, and it's not always clear to people what we're building, why we are building, and especially you look into a lot of AI crypto projects, and there isn't a lot of AI going on there. So I'm glad that you guys are exceptions to that rule, and you're very clear in your positioning and very transparent and very clear as to what you're building. So today we're gonna talk about not your AI, not your crypto. Sorry, not your AI, not your what happened to me? Okay,
Future.
not your AI, not your future. That's right, which is the same as not your crypto. But anyway, in my case, yeah, but there is not much to debate about it. I think we can go on and say, look, this is the spiel, which we will do. But I think what's much more interesting is to first talk about what you guys are building. So Matthew, over to you. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience and tell us about what you're building with OpenGradient?
Sure, awesome. Thanks for hosting today with Prashant from Spheron and obviously Ajay, who is also one of our proud angels. I'm Matthew. Nice to meet everyone. I am one of the co-founders of OpenGradient. Briefly about my background, did ECE, ML research, had spent most of my professional career as a research engineer at a quantitative hedge fund here in New York called Two Sigma, had spent shorter stints doing ML and engineering at places like Google and Facebook and NASA, and very excited to be building in the space. A quick short blurb on what OpenGradient is. We're essentially a decentralized platform that aims to make onboarding AI-driven workflows onto the blockchain as easy as possible. So you should be able to train a model on your computer, be able to upload it to some web portal, and be able to inference it securely from any smart contract within seconds without having to think about hardware acceleration, proof generation, attestations, and any of that. And that's all handled by our infrastructure. And it's ultimately, to achieve this goal of allowing Web3 to, empower their applications with more optimization, intelligence, and ultimately one day compete against Web2 applications.
Okay, Prashant, tell us more about Spheron, please.
Amazing. Thank you, Matthew, for coming to the space, and thank you, Ajit, for hosting it. So at the Spheron, our core focus is to build that supercompute network, which allows anyone and everyone to lease out these compute GPUs, CPUs, or whatever you're looking forward for AI workloads out there. So let's say, even in case of Matthew, I think a few days back I commented on your tweet asking is like where those GPUs are currently, and you said like it's been run by Foundation. So our main focus at Spheron is to push foundation, allow foundations to go and use and lease out these GPUs and these foundation layer infrastructure from Web3 native ways, which basically powered by community and run by governed by and like run by community. So that is what we are more focused at. And overall, the whole intent is to like bring that compute layer from everyone's home also, so that it becomes much more easier for developers to tap into these powerful machines without paying humongous cost to cloud infrastructure. And we are making everything permissionless from day one. So as you said, like, so our product approach is very clear: make everything on chain first and then rest everything later. So that is what our focus has always been, and to bring the compute also with the same scenario forward.
Question for you, Matthew. Why do we need a blockchain for any of this? So, AI-driven workflows exist today in enterprise, or even for consumers. Agentic workflows are becoming, well, they're still early, but starting to become a bit familiar. So, why do we need a blockchain for any of this?
I think a good kind of mental framework that I like to employ is to think about what the sorry, what problems we're trying to solve today, right? So essentially, from our view, there are two sets of problems distinctly that OpenGradient is tackling. So the first problem is, problems that exist native to blockchain applications. So today we have a lot of DeFi applications. We have other types of DeSci, social gaming applications that all live on the blockchain. And the blockchain being a replicated state machine, as well as having a long history of being extremely adversarial, has a very high requirement for obviously security, right? You can't just run some model off chain and be like, hey, you got to trust the results. These billions of dollars in my DeFi application will be completely, trusted by this result that I ran that, is opaque and has no actual execution trace, right? So the first problem is obviously making compute secure and safe. So blockchain applications can very easily leverage AI and ML compute to, expand their design space and make their protocols and applications actually smarter, right? And then the second problem set, and more directly addressing your question, is why do we need blockchains to solve the traditional problems in the AI world, right? What can blockchains actually bring to the table? Blockchains actually have a lot of very nice properties, and I'm sure Prashant will actually allude to some of these later, but some of them being obviously decentralization. With decentralization comes censorship resistance. And on top of that, you can actually benefit from a very decentralized validator set that are constantly validating any proofs and attestations generated by any nodes on the network. So more concretely, what this actually means is if I'm a centralized party, let's say I'm building in Web2 AI, and I want to rely on some party that is able to provide not just compute but also validation of that compute, I can very easily run a node on this network and trust that, and sorry, not just trust, but actually verify through the node I'm running that, hey, all the proofs, all the attestations generated on this network by the nodes providing the compute, I'm actually like double checking that everything's okay. And this provides a trust minimized experience that can ensure that whatever you're using the compute for, is secure as you're validating yourself.
Yeah, so I've been quite skeptical about I started out rather very skeptical about the whole AI crypto space, and then I was my favorite philosopher friend I talked to is Sriram of Eigenlayer, and he kind of always clears my head about these things. The guy is way too smart, right? So it helps my IQ as well. So I asked him, and I was like, bro, why do any of these AI things need blockchain? And he said, look, decentralization is not really a value proposition, right, in isolation, but there are two things that you can bring to the experience. One is verifiability, and verifiability as in end user verifiability, or you kind of know what happened, why it happened, or the kind of the whole, and you can check as to what you think happened actually happened, right? So there are many definitions you can come up with, but that's the long and the short of it. And the second thing is this idea of credible commitments and censorship resistance. So when you make a commitment and say, look, this is what I'm going to do, or this is what is going to happen, or this is what happened, then how do you know, right? What is the incentive system behind it? So there is a cryptographic proof, or there is a crypto economic proof, and that's sort of where you say, look, I am staking some money, and if I do something else, then you kind of slash, or there is a penalty, or there is some incentive for doing the right thing. So that's what makes the commitments credible, whether it's cryptographic proof or crypto economic security. So I think that's a pretty powerful idea from a meta and sort of this abstract philosophical perspective. But more concretely, give us an example, Matthew, of a workflow, right? Like a real life workflow where any of this actually you've seen or that you're applying in real life, where users can see the value of it, whether it's developers or like end users.
Yeah, kind of going back to the two type of problem sets, I can provide a couple examples of what we think are particularly valuable. So in the blockchain world, as an example, a very interesting use case we're working on is doing dynamic fee optimization for AMM swaps. So in the traditional world of finance, you have all these sophisticated market makers that are providing liquidity to the markets in the form of bid-ask spreads. AMMs, on the other hand, are relatively primitive. They quote a constant fee, which is pretty wild coming from TradFi. And if you scrutinize, the results and the impact of that, you'll see that over 50% of LPs can't turn a profit in even the most liquid AMM in the world, i.e., this is Uniswap. And through dynamic fees in our simulations, in some research we publish and we'll continue to put out, you can actually see that dynamic fees can reduce impermanent loss by around 15 to 18% annually. And this is done through the power of pretty general, which is classical machine learning, doing like vol and risk prediction. So this is like one avenue we can provide value, which is making blockchain applications smarter, like I said. In the more traditional AI world, there are actually a couple different use cases that we thought were very interesting. There's this one project that it's this team coming out of India that does bio and healthcare. So they are collecting kind of user data from their personal health devices, and they want to run some compute over it that is secure. And they want to be able to create some kind of mechanism that keeps track of their progress and also flag any kind of like erratic behavior, or if there are any issues with their health, be able to flag it. So clinicians and their health providers can actually be able to see that, hey, this is something that we didn't expect as flagged by this model. And this obviously requires a lot of verifiability, ensuring that the data, the compute was all done correctly, and we're working with them to kind of improve the guarantees and trust minimization around some of these high value use cases, while still providing obviously the ability for anyone to for people to run nodes to either collect data or to verify the compute.
Yeah, so I also have another verifiability maximalist friend who is in the AI crypto world, and that's Eddie Lazarin of A16Z. So we've been on a few chats with various other projects, and it's like, oh, wait. I mean, what does the really blockchain bring to this, right? And now we are seeing that happen in training, in inference, and compute. So Prashant, you're sort of attacking solving the compute side of this, right? And but I mean, from what Matthew described, there's no reason why I can't like create these agentic workflows on my iPhone, and they're running on Apple's compute. What's the problem with that? I mean, why do I need to
Multiple.
have a decentralized? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I think it's a multiple one. First thing first, I'm kind of not at a like I don't buy that thesis of like running AI models on your phones until unless you are ready to make it blast whenever, like, because none of these models are capable enough, or none of these systems are like whatever you are deploying on these smaller devices, they are not even managing the heat systems which are being generated on this phone. So it's very crazy to kind of think into that direction at this point of time when the models are still quite big in terms of like running where they're supposed to be running, until unless we have like some very good way of like breaking them down in a smaller chunks and then throwing it out and running it. There are a few people who will come forward and challenge this by saying, hey, you know what, see, Samsung runs on their own AI things on their own local devices, but in reality they don't do that. They don't do it like that. So only some part of it they do on chain, like on their device, and rest they basically query that endpoint, an API endpoint, right, what they have exposed for their own users, and they process everything on cloud and do it. So that's something which I like. I'm not buying that story for now, but maybe like later I might buy that story is like running everything on phone. Now coming to that theory of is like, hey, you know what, I think the better question, like the better angle of looking at it is like, can't we just run it on AWS? Why we even need Spherons like applications out there to kind of like coming forward and saying, hey, you know what, just do that and do this. Now, if we are living in a world called like agentic workflow, and I was explaining this just few days back, even yesterday, I was explaining to one of the devs, and I was having a call with, and he was very curious to learn about like how Spheron solves such kind of issues without um, problem for deploying these agents. So I told him a very very small scenario. I said like, let's imagine for a moment, Spheron has created a massive pool of these compute resources which is spread across the globe. Like, so currently as we speak, we are currently in 140 regions, right? Imagine for a moment if somebody just deploys a pre-configured agentic workflow which is capable enough to replicate itself, and it only has a USDT. What just Matthew has told is like, if we can give that agent a USDT, it can possibly go lease out a compute on chain, deploy one more agent, do hundreds of different things without even
Yeah,
having any kind of frictions there, right?
yeah,
You cannot achieve it on AWS. You will get blocked immediately if you try to do that, because then you need to have multiple endpoints, API endpoints to query all of those things. While here, you just keep submitting transaction, you keep getting new computes like getting leased for you, right? So you can go and build this permissionless these AI meme coins, AI things, or AI like even DEX, AMMs, or whatever you wish to, without even worrying about getting into any of these nitty gritty. It's like just dropping something which just keeps on replicating, and you cannot just stop it. It has both pros and cons, which everything has, even Bitcoin also. But the pros are like quite high, right? So you don't really go into that direction. It's like, hey, I'm paying $1,000 to AWS. So today, the beauty of this, what we have built so far, is like all of these people, this entire infrastructure is powered by community. We are hardly spending only few amount of capital to basically bring all of these machines online. So that is where our thesis goes into, is like not mobile as of now, but on laptops, enabling that to run this agentic workflow at across the regions, and which is capable enough to executing these heavier models, at least at this point of time.
right. So I think that's kind of the part about end-to-end verifiability, right? Now I have another
Yes,
smart friend. So I found out very early that the smartest thing one can do is to make a lot of smart friends, especially much smarter than you, right? So I have a third smart friend. His name is Ilya Polushkin, and he was one of the co-authors of the Transformers paper that started the whole thing. Also, the founder of Near, co-founder of Near. So he is very big on something known as user-owned AI. I also keep telling him to just not do anything else other than AI crypto, and I think it annoys him a bit. But so this whole idea of user-owned AI, right? I mean, today most things are not user-owned, right? So, for example, the web servers I use are not user-owned. Now we're trying to ship light clients, Avail, Celestia, these guys, so that the end user verification is user-owned, if for like crypto applications, and we're not relying on Infura or someone else's node and this and that. So I think there is this drive more broadly that crypto brings towards, end user ownership of everything, right? Data, compute, processing, logic, inference, all of those wonderful things. But what's not clear to me is that Web2 runs perfectly fine today, right? So I mean, I'm using Facebook servers. I use Salesforce. I use Uber. So why do I need my AI to be user owned? Isn't it like just software?
that's
Yeah,
quite a good question. Like Matthew, you
Matthews,
can also pick it up,
Prashant, yeah,
yeah. Sorry,
or I
do
can
you want
also
me?
just
yeah,
add.
yeah.
So
Prashant, it's your space. Sorry, okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm just
I'll
contributing.
add one point, and then you can just take it forward from there. So just to give you a very high level overview, right? So I think it's one of the very interesting questions like people should ask themselves, is like, why user owned like instead of saying like user owned, I would say like it's economically viable and like incentivized systems where people are incentivized to provide this compute, and you are not like somebody who is relying on one single endpoint. Imagine case of Facebook, right? If I have to go and build 10,000 applications on a Facebook, believe me, you as a developer, you cannot do it, because they will block you. You will get banned, right? That's one thing. Second thing, let's take example, classic example of Twitter, right? So somebody wants to build a Twitter bot on top of them, or something like that on Twitter servers, like wherever that server is located of Twitter's. Now you cannot use it because they will charge you $100, right? And it's their pricing. They control everything. You don't control anything. So like in the world of financial market, you look out for the better way to create an arbitrage and make a profit out of it. The same happens in the digital world when we talk about compute. If you are not able to create that profit out of it, even essentially you are going to pay a huge sum to these centralized companies. I'll give you one very classic example. There are SaaS companies who are in valley based, and you can name any, right? So today, whatever SaaS companies which use, most of their profit, let's say 50% of their entire expense goes to maintaining their servers. Okay, and it's a real data which has been published by multiple companies. So there are companies who are paying 65% of the entire revenue generated to these companies like AWS, GCPs, and all of these sort of companies to kind of run. Just imagine if you are building this AI and all of this stuff on chain, and then you end up in paying like huge humongous costs to the centralized entities for just maintaining all of these things. It's not profitable because the margin is gonna be like steep. You have to function very fast, and so that is where we need user owned, user powered, community powered infrastructure, which doesn't stops you from leasing it out. And as I always say, is like in Spheron, leasing out H100 is just click lease it out. In AWS, you have to go and do a KYC, okay, to even lease it out. So that's a difference. That's a powerful statement which I'm making here, and it's really a
Mhm,
true one.
mhm,
Which
mhm.
right. So
Yeah.
that is what it creates a differentiation, right, between the community powered versus somebody just powering via their API endpoints.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's kind of the crypto thesis anyway, right? Which is user owned, but also permissionless, censorship resistant. If the AWS one, you're sitting in Lebanon, and let's say the AWS wants to block you because some political factor or whatever, or then yeah, you do want to have that this uninterrupted commitment of uninterrupted access to compute, which is almost becoming a human right, if you will, right? It's no longer just an economic value. It's also compute is almost a human right. So especially in the
I
age of AI, where compute is such a necessity, it's like going to be like oxygen, right? I mean, or
Yeah.
or electricity. So you definitely want that. I think that's a pretty powerful statement to make. Matthew, over to you. So yeah, what's with the
Yeah, I mean,
user
like,
owned piece of this? Yeah.
I generally agree with what Prashant had mentioned, but a couple points I would like to add is this is not unique to crypto AI, right? The idea of like being user owned and like sovereignty, that has been one of the fundamental ethoses of blockchains and Web3 since this thing started, right? Where the idea is like, hey, not your keys, not your coins, right? If you don't custody your own assets, who knows, right? FTX might blow up, your money might be gone, so on and so forth. And the idea of like, hey, when you custody your assets, you are the one and only true owner of these assets. And I think the same applies to like compute, and in this case, like user-owned AI, right? If you have access to the models, and you can very easily verify what the hell is going on underneath the hood, you can fine tune the model with your own private data if you wanted to. You could actually go and validate the weights themselves. You can go manipulate the model ensemble you've built in any way that you want, as opposed to most existing Web2 solutions. Not saying they don't work well, but when I make an inference request to ChatGPT, I'm simply sending an API request, right? Whatever goes on, on their servers is a complete black box to me. I don't know if they hot swap the model. I don't know if it's some person typing on the other end. Like, I essentially have no guarantees and no, way of actually understanding what the hell is going on underneath the hood, right? And in that way, it's very much not user owned, similar to how when I send my money to Binance, right? Like, who knows, like, where they're keeping my money, whether it's in a bank account, whether it's in a hot wallet, cold storage. And I think the idea of both verifiability as well as transparency are just like fundamental concepts that have been core to the crypto culture for a really long time.
I think I'll add on one point there. There's a meme actually. So if you remember, like there was one meme used to come in a very early days where there is an ATM box. Behind that ATM box, people used to think like it's an automated machine giving out a cash, but in reality, there is a guy who's sitting inside that box and giving you out cash whenever you give a card to him. Right. So there's a whole lot of meme which was created around the banking system. Is like how the banking system basically works, and this is what basically happens, right? So if you throw an API call, you never know what is happening behind the scene. You like what Matthew has just pointed out. It's like you just told me is like I'm going to be using this model which is very expensive, right? And I'm paying for that. But eventually, what you are doing is like you are querying the model which is cheapest in the market, and then or you are just trying to create some kind of arbitrage logic there to kind of like make the money out most money out of it. Nobody knows it. So I think such kind of layer with what Matthew and team is also building at OpenGradient, if you combine them together, it becomes more powerful for the entire economics, where people know like whenever they are asking for such kind of queries, it's been validated, verified on chain, what these guys are doing, and then it's also been verified on the compute level as well, because then we know there is a real model which is running, and this is submitting that that request on chain, and it just works.
I get that. I think, but see, a lot of the discussion in crypto AI tends to be fairly abstract. Whereas, when I speak to my AI colleagues, the IIT Mafia and Silicon Valley crowd, the Google crowd, and all that, then there is typically AI has gotten to a point where, people are productizing things. So, if you're on Twitter, you would think that everything is like in models and everyone is focused on building the biggest and the fanciest model, but that's kind of not what's really going on, right? I think what's going on is that people are building AI straight into products. So products being things that are handy for users, right? So I mean, I have a friend who is working on like call center complaint detection and automation, and that's such a real thing, And when I looked at the size of the market, I was like, oh shit, this thing is big. So it's a very different type of situation. Whereas when I look at a lot of crypto AI stuff, not even Goat or Bit Tensor, which are more memetic than anything else. I'm like, where is the product? So when can I actually use something? When are you going to show me something that I can use? So where are you at in that journey where, and that's what gives crypto AI a little bit of a lesser credibility in the Valley circles, right? Because the Valley crowd have kind of, because AI technology has matured a lot. It's been going on for 70, 80 years. And now we've got to a point through a confluence of miracles, whether it's compute and whether it's, models and transformers ideas and whatnot, that now we have something that's imminently useful. And that's kind of driving an incredible amount of exuberance and enthusiasm. But when you talk to crypto AI, we are still often speaking in abstract terms, right? So where are you guys in your product journey? When can I actually play with something that OpenGradient has, Matthew?
Yeah, so I think that's a great point. Also, hopefully, I'm not lagging too much. I know my computer's like making a lot of noise, so
Yeah,
I
we're
know
both
it's
lagging a
like kind of
bit.
a toaster. Am I cutting a bit?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay, great. So I think that's a great point that you brought up. Everything is spoken about in abstract, and I think one of the kind of key features that sets our team apart is we're very product oriented, and this comes both in the form of shipping actual like products that are live today. Our DevNet is live. We have a Python SDK is live. Our web portal where you can drag and drop models, manage models through versioning. That's all live as well. But also through, like you had mentioned, actually building models that have some kind of end use case for some product, right? So that's in our case, investing in research to build, powerful models that can help make blockchain applications smarter and more optimized. So we have, in-house research initiatives focused on building risk models. So there's like vol forecasting models that can help make lending protocols and CDP protocols smarter and more optimized by allowing them to manage risk. Like I alluded to earlier, dynamic fee optimization models for AMMs. So this is ultimately to reduce net and permanent loss for LPs. We have a collaboration with like a team that spun out of protocol labs focused on building reputation models for DePIN nodes. So we can use things such as uptime, such as liveness as features to help, score these nodes and allocate rewards more effectively. So this can improve the guarantees over time of a DePIN network. So these are all kind of like fundamental use cases that we're investing in. So building models that ultimately make our infrastructure valuable, right? Because if there are no models that people want to use, the infrastructure is like, okay, well, it's not that useful. And if you see kind of how Web2 AI operates today, you'll see that it's relatively similar, right? Every time you open up Netflix, the recommendations that you see, that's powered by AI. When you send a message to your friend on Messenger, some AI algorithm scans it for malicious content. When someone wants to start advertising on Google, I built regression models there that would forecast, hey, if you spent $1,000 today, what would the kind of metrics, what would the predicted click-through rate be, and all these things, right? This is all today powered by a variety of machine learning and AI models, and we want to kind of see the same development happen in Web3. But for that to happen, not only do we need to, obviously invest in research like we are collaborating with these teams to build models that are helpful, but also we need infrastructure that just makes this very, very easy, right? I shouldn't have to get my own hardware, get my own server, spin up that, my own node and, place my model there, figure out how to use like zkML proofs or TE attestations. I should be able to, one click drag and drop, deploy some model and be able to inference it from any smart contract on any chain. And until it's made that easy, like we don't think, like, we want to minimize the friction between developers building models and applications becoming smarter, and that's what we're all about at Open Gradient.
See, what people do on chain these days is relatively simple, right? So, as in a lot of it is trading, it's DeFi. So, almost all of it is DeFi, right? In various names. So, whether it's trading meme coins, which is, I'm sorry, most of what I do when I'm on chain these days, or, or let's say, DeFi, like lending using Aave or Synthetics Maker, these protocols, or some their Solana variants, and so I think it's quite interesting that you chose finance, because there is more of a chance to show something, right? Where you say, look, this is a real application on chain. People actually use this. There's a lot of demand for this, so you can actually create meaningful and useful agentic workflows around this, or other types of AI enabled workflows around it. And here is an example of the sort of thing you can do, and it's actually better because. So I'll give you a really dumb example, right? So I'm in a crypto shitcoiner chat, and I don't have time to track it. So I would like. I have a cousin who keeps track of everything that's being posted in that chat. Like, he's 19 years old. He has too much time, and all he does is every time it shows up, he just picks the ticker, posts it on Bunkpot, and that's it. Boom. So zero point 0.5 Sol worth of some random stuff, and that stupid strategy has done actually very well. Because you just need one of those lotteries, and because it's such a lottery thing. So now so my kid is like this AI agent, right? He's assistant in India, so I call him AI. But I think that sort of thing should be fairly automatable, right? And you don't really need AI technically, but I mean, like, if there is someone monitoring my actual behavior or his actual behavior, then you can build a fair amount of intelligence through, let's say, supervised learning. But also, you can do other things in combination with market data to sort of create more unsupervised type of learning and value. So I took a very dumb example because that's kind of what I'm doing these days on chain. But I think this thing can become pretty powerful. So, and the hardest thing with crypto always is creating demand, right? I think, which is, okay, so we have all these great ideas, but where the hell is the demand going to come from? And I think that's one thing that I've seen really, I think, thoughtful about Spheron as well, which is, you guys have always kind of thought about where the demand is going to come from, and you always had some demand or the other. So, Prashant, where is the demand coming from for your, decentralized GPU network for AI?
Yeah, it is coming from most of the Web3 companies who are building currently into the space. So that is what we are doing it. But just to let you know, just to give you a very high level context, is like how the demand basically drives to us. So for example, what Matthew has just told is like, is there a way I can click on a button and then everything is set up for me, instead of like me going and doing and finding out, okay, I have to just go here, go there, do tons of other thing. That is something which we have launched, right? So a few weeks back, we were just doing a testing with one of the very good Silicon Valley company who has been providing that inferencing layer to a lot of people, and we given their community to run their node on Spheron, and they were like, just click and launch. Now they don't even have to do anything else, so everything is done. They are able to participate in the crypto incentive what that team is providing, and they are paying much more lower cost in terms of like the compute itself. That's the one place of demand where you solve the problem what people are looking to be like solving at like you abstract that problem for them, right? So that they just look for, hey, you know what, I need to do this, just go and do it. So that is how we basically like look at Spheron to solving the problem. Instead of making it more complicated, we are making it more simple in terms of vertically integrated with the protocols. So when I say vertically integrated, that basically means like, let's say today OpenGradient just opened up, for example, they have just opened up entire node infrastructure and allow community to run it. Now if you look around, like most of the community members don't have a very high level technology. Either what you're saying is like you cannot run it, or you are just saying is like only the tech people can come and run it, and like how many tech people are there in crypto itself. So we need to have this more abstracted out. So what we do is like we just go ahead and abstract it out for community. They click and launch and it works. That's one way of like driving demand. Second way how we are kind of doing that is tapping into developer ecosystem. So what we are doing, what we are giving them is, hey, you know what? Do you have any imagination to go ahead and build? Go ahead and build it. So people started doing it. So for example, there is a technology called Ray. They are deploying, like they are connecting this fizz and deploying those head nodes, connecting these rays together to bring that AI edge inferencing, right? So there is this product layer which these guys are building, like application layer, to solve some real problem. We are not focused on training, like because that's not our area of domain, but we are more focused on how we can make those trainings much more fine tuning or even inferencing much more easier over these community run nodes and in a verified way, right? So that is how we are driving the demand. Even um, and you won't believe, I was just looking at some of the numbers, and there was a number which was also published by A16Z, right? So and also a couple of other teams like where
That's Matthew's investors, right? So Matthew has
yeah,
both A16Z and me. So yeah,
yeah.
amazing.
So they have wrote a report, like the report was
Right.
that 35% of the companies in web3 are using AI in ways, right? And this is just starting, like 35, we have already reached 35% in the past 1.5 years. Now, in next couple of 6 months or 8 months down the when the bull market hits, you will find like everyone will need AI because they all will look forward to reduce their cost of operations, and that can only happen if you transfer your workloads to decentralized alternatives, or else it will never.
Mhm.
You'll end up in paying huge amount of sum to these companies, and it just doesn't work. So that is how we are planning to like drive demand, and we are driving demand as of now at Spheron.
Yeah, I mean, I think demand is going to be there. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Andreessen Horowitz started this program called Oxygen, where they're going to essentially buy a bunch of GPUs and like rent them out to portfolio companies. Because
Yeah.
portfolio companies like us, we have a lot of yeah, we demand for like compute, whether it's for like serving or for training and things like that. So yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of value to what Spheron is doing. And if you kind of take a look, just like take a step back and you take a look at what Web two today, or just like Web two, TradFi, what's going on in the world, it's AI and ML is actually very, very commonly used almost in every part in every corner of our lives, right? Even in quant finance, or sorry, even in finance in general. Like I had built out multiple types of models while I was at Two Sigma. We would have convex optimizers that would optimize, try to eke out basis points. We had vol forecasting models, spot forecasting models, risk models, all these things that made ultimately our market making desk one that was profitable, right? And even moving outside of trading itself, a lot of different like credit scoring agencies, use models to kind of evaluate whether someone is going to like chance someone defaults. There are people who use kind of more kind of like deep learning models and natural language processing to try to create like sentiment scores and try to use that as a predictor, a leading predictor of where the markets are heading. You have folks trying to use more traditional time series forecasting for predicting like how commodities will move and all this stuff. These are all powered by ANML models. They might not be kind of like AI models the way people think about them today. They might not be huge transformers or deep learning models or neural networks. Might be a lot of the time regression models or time series forecasting models, things like that. But nonetheless, I mean, like I think regardless, that's just to say that the demand will be there, and I think there are a lot of use cases that people don't actively think about on the daily. And I think if we want crypto and blockchain and Web3 at large to eventually somewhat replace or at least be a meaningful competitor to the traditional financial ecosystem that exists today, we need compute, right? From Spheron, we need kind of like easy model deployment and platforms by OpenGradient to allow people to iterate and open up this design space on chain. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I'm very excited about.
I think what one thing I also learned from I think what you guys just said is, this kind of hit me that crypto is a little bit of a, forgive my language, circle jerk, right? So as in, it's just like a few coin people talking to each other, and it's maybe there is a million of us, 10 million of us, including Binance customers, maybe 50 million of us. So who never, I mean, go on chain or 100 maximum. even if you assume that there are no duplicate wallets. So we kind of like talking to each other while there is this demand from the mainstream, right? And the last time we as an industry tried to go mainstream, we sold a bunch of shit, like JPEGs and meme coins and whatnot. So which is fine, but this seems something truly valuable, right? Because crypto has always, since Bitcoin and stable coins, right, like payment systems, we have struggled to offer something that is truly valuable to the consumer, irrespective of where they come from, right? It's not a crypto thing. Consumer is a consumer, right? People talk about consumer crypto, but that's so retarded. I mean, I get a bit emotional about it because consumers are consumers, right? So there's no such thing as consumer crypto or producer crypto. I mean,
Yeah.
consumer is consumer, and consumer needs some value. So now this is something where everyone's lives are impacted, and we can finally start to. And crypto is a blockchains are crypto is a unique technology because it offers what Shriram says, credible commitments, and if you want user owned and or some level of user owned AI, you can't do that without crypto. So it's impossible to do, right, to really have verifiability around that. So we finally have something where we can offer some value to the end consumer even outside crypto now, and we have to learn to sell to to those people without selling them a casino. No offense in it's perfectly fine to have a casino, and it's a good way to get people in, and as they say, on board. I mean, hopefully that's not Iggy Azalea's onboarding. Sorry, now I'm ranting, but I think that there is something really valuable here, and if we really offer it to people who are, let's say, typically Android users or even Solana phone users, right? So which are like end consumers, then there is something there. Now, so you guys are solving different parts of this. Are you guys somehow collaborating on this, or how does this work? As in, Matthew, where is your compute going to come from? Is it going to come from like decentralized compute providers, or is it going to come from in Facebook's data centers?
That's a great question. So
So
obviously right now we're in the DevNet phase, so
that's a
we kind
question
of
for Eddie, right? Sorry.
yeah, no, the foundation's
Yeah.
running most of the like we're running most of the initial nodes,
Okay.
and we're providing
Right.
compute and subsidizing costs.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately we subscribe to a worldview where everything is permissionless, and that includes compute, right? And it should be, I guess, like referencing game theory, it should be ultimately a Bertrand competition where we can minimize the marginal cost to things like compute, and this just makes it so much more accessible to anyone who might want to either do decentralized training, might want to serve all different types of models. And with that said, we want a nice mix of centralized data centers, maybe AWS or Azure or GCP, and also the Spherons, the IONets, these folks that can provide valuable and decentralized compute at a significantly lower cost. And it ultimately just depends on I think where this space trends. But I think right now it's definitely, at least to my understanding, trending in the direction of decentralized compute being the more cheaper alternative. So I think, yeah, like for a network like ours to be reliable, definitely want to include many different types of compute is the long answer short.
Yeah, thank you so much
Yeah.
for adding that. But just wanted to kind of add on that, as Matthew has also like pointed out, and our thesis at Spheron is also one thing is like any infrastructure is not reliable for a very longer time. So I come from a very deep infra background. So whenever you build a AWS kind of system, it requires time for maturity. Like in financial system, you require some compound to see a compounding effect. You need to stay in the market as long as possible and hold the right things, right? So the same goes with the compute as well. We have been here for building like I don't know, like 3 to 4 years now, and what we have realized is like that effect earlier when we used to go to people asking, hey, you know what, do you want to use this one? And the answer was like no, because you guys don't have these things. So what GPU has brought into the picture is like it brought a very homogeneous kind of systems where you need a GPU, you need RTX 4090. That's it. That's a dot. There is nothing beyond it. There's no cloud requires around it, right? So there is not. So you need a functions to be run, and it just runs. And now when you go in a decentralized way, then I think AWS and all of these guys are making bankrupt to the people because like who might be running the inferencing, because it requires a lot of egress. Right? There are a lot of data output which happens. There are a lot of calls which goes out of their network, and they cost heavily, like 60-70%. It just goes quite crazy. So having a decentralized alternative in combination with the centralized one as of now plays a very vital role, because it just boosts the community morale, because it just helps them to participate easily. And also for the foundations, it becomes easier for like to subsidize and offset those costs which they might be incurring once they go live.
Yeah, so now I ranted about the casino, and I'm as much of a happy participant in it as the next guy. But now casino is also a very nice marketing tool, and it's also a way to engage and offer some level of ownership in the network to communities. So there is a positive side to it as well, right? And I think Chris Dixon has written quite eloquently about it in his book, which I strongly recommend. And there's also Balaji's book, Network State, which kind of applies to this whole idea of building, the Web3 startups and even Web2 startups now increasingly. So I have a question. So in terms of go-to-market, how are your communities, right? So people who are like Uber has communities, drivers and passengers, they're both community, right? So similarly, crypto tends to offer these unsided marketplaces which have these communities. So how are your communities going to participate? Don't tell me about some airdrop program, and that's not what I'm asking. Just to be very clear, how are your communities going to benefit or be incentivized to participate in, for example, in let's say OpenGradient first, and then Spheron next, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple different ways with where we currently are. I think the more experienced like engineers or ML practitioners within our community, so this is likely a smaller percentage, but those people can test our network, right? As an example, they can build some model that they want, or they can train some model, they can fine tune some model, upload it, and be able to inference it directly from a smart contract. And we actively want to incentivize people like this that can help push forward research, right? Hey, maybe take a model that we've built internally at OpenGradient and make it better, or add a spin to it to make it, if you're doing like some kind of risk management, make it, work for other types of asset classes, or, another token pair. And I think that's like obviously going to be applicable to a smaller group of people. I think for the large group of people, it's really playing around with our DevNet and our existing infrastructure to, even in the past like week or two that we've been live, we've discovered kind of like, things that could be better, with small bugs here and there that have been reported by the community. Figuring out what those kind of rough edges that we need to iron out are as we continue moving as a product, I think are going to be important. And I think like ultimately, we are still like a blockchain adjacent crypto project. So we want to, have people, in our community who can help continue to push forward on initiatives such as kind of like this is like playing into the whole like community building thing, but pitching ideas on what agents could be cool that we can build next, right? Hosting like like fun just like community gatherings where we can like discuss what's next with crypto AI and things like that.
Right. So, and Prashant?
Yeah, for us, it's very straightforward. So we have two kind of communities into our system. The one is the tech, and we call another as non-tech. For the tech folks, we have again there's a three different level of differentiation which we have created, and those are for value creation. Okay, for all of them. So there is in the tech we have data centers, people like who are quite rich, wealthy folks, and they have a lot of H100s and a lot of 4090s and all of those things. So we have a dedicated community of them like who are supporting us in terms of providing those supply to ensure that we meet the end user demand. And then we have something called fizzers. Like that was the community which we kind of built from this kind. Like it's going wild. Like people are going like crazy about like, hey, you know what? I have this system. I just want to participate. And you know what they basically ask is like, how can we? So there are tons of these questions they started asking is like how people are able to lease out these machines, how they are able to do that, right? So that's becoming very interesting. So there are a lot of these fizzers who are running their machines across the globe from different regions, and we are building this amazing community of like folks who are non-tech but have machines and want to participate. So that's a good mixture of non-tech and tech folks which we are creating there. The third and the most important part, like which we always play, and that is where Spheron, since we come from dev background, we always have that corner of developers, like where we build everything around them, and we try to like ensure that they are also able to leverage it quite seamlessly. So we have this amazing developer grant programs which is running, like open source bounty programs which are running like around $50,000, $100,000 with different partners to allow these developers to go and build and innovate around this compute supply which is coming forward. and kind of play around with that. And what we are doing is like essentially giving them credits around the compute so that they can go and innovate it, which they are no longer getting. So, okay, so I'll give you one quick classic example of our community, which happened recently. There was a team which there was a cool dev team like based out of India, and they reached out us by saying, Prashant, we want to build this news analyzer, and I think it is there now. So they wanted to. I think the Ajit, you just told that as example, but it was a very different one. So he said like, Prashant, you know what? I always have to go to these different magazines, news medias, and I never get to know is like which one I should read and which one I should not, right? And which one I should avoid. So is there a way where I can just funnel these news media outlets URLs, and I should be able to get a summary of like what happened today in the entire nation, right? In a very systematic way from different magazines. And he was not able to like he they did not build it earlier. They built it today. The reason being because earlier they did not have that capital to go ahead and like lease out these massive compute, run these Olama models or Llama models, different set of models to kind of innovate around their idea. They came to Spheron, they built it hardly around 2 weeks. Like now their repo is up and running, and we are just looking into like how cool is that gonna be. So that is what we also do, and there are tons of other such use cases which people are like building around that, utilizing it, and that is where we see like so there are a lot of ways we are ensuring that the community which we are building, it's not just a community which just comes and goes. We want to build a robust solid community which just revolves around Spheron and takes a huge value out of it. It's not just airdrop or all of those stuff. Like people are not just
Okay.
doing it for airdrops.
Yeah, this is amazing. I'm definitely gonna. I'm already running a Fizz node, so I'm very excited. I think the product just works. That's very nice. So looking forward to the next release. Matthew, always good to speak to you. I'm really amazed by your progress, and I think how and the focus you brought to the whole what you're doing. I think you have a finance background, and you kind of really leverage that into building some really cool tech. I'm very excited. So looking forward to downloading and running, or somehow using what you're building as well. Any other final thoughts on the topic, or where we can find more about you, where we can learn more about both from a tech, for the technical audience and a non-technical audience, Matthew and then Prashant?
Yeah, sure. So I will say the best way to keep in touch with us is obviously to follow us on OpenGradient's official Twitter account. So that's x.com/OpenGradient. That's where we put out most of our announcements. We just launched our decentralized AI hub actually today. So if you go to our website, opengradient.ai, you can also navigate to the model hub, where it's essentially kind of like a decentralized version of Hugging Face. So you can play around, browse models there. If you want to upload your own models, version your own models, there's an inference playground there as well. So feel free to go check that out. Yeah, very, very excited. We will be continuing to ship over the course of the next couple quarters. And yeah, we'll keep everyone posted.
Always be shipping, guys. It's really it's really amazing to hear from you. We have been in this incredible crazy week with this Twitter account, just taking goat to $1 billion, some meme coin. I still can't tell if that's AI or person. I'm a crypto guy. I've been around so long that I've started to not trust anything unless it can be verified. And the weird part for me is that there's no way to verify, right, if this Twitter account called Truth Terminal is actually AI, or it's some dude, or some mixture of the two. I think it's probably some mixture of the two. It's like, in India there was this thing where the statue started drinking milk, and everyone was like, oh my god, the gods are drinking milk, and it turned out to be capillary action. But that's the best part of crypto. On one hand, we're like smart people. On the other hand, we are very, very good at switching off our thinking when the number is going up. So be it. I think we, looking forward to also dank memes from you guys also. I'm very big on memes, and please make good memes, because memes are very important for consumer adoption on the internet. And hopefully you will create AI and agentic workflows and run them on decentralized compute, and that AI will generate memes, and you guys will outrun goat and the FTV of goat when you guys launch. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, these are interesting times, and I think this idea of credible commitments, verifiability, user ownership, and censorship resistance, uninterrupted access and this is the idea of compute and AI as a human right. I think is very, very powerful. People talk about the dangers of AI, but people rarely talk about how important AI is going to be for narrowing the digital divide or widening it. So, I mean, I think what you're doing is incredibly powerful. I know we are in the early days of that. So I'm really looking forward to your journey over the next 5 years and kind of contributing to it in any way we can. So thank you so much, and thanks to our audience for joining as well. Please keep shipping, and looking forward to great success, as they say. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.